Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi and welcome back to That Trippi Show. Lots to get into this week. Two very different speeches from Joe Biden and Trump. Why the contrast has never been more clear. The Trump campaign has to be really concerned about letting him debate Joe Biden. And what all these MAGAs showing up at Trump's trial really means. I think the media is missing something really important, and we get to a couple of your questions. Alex, where should we get started?
Well, let's hit the speeches. And for context here, this isn't just about two guys giving speeches on a weekend. And John, I know you'll get into it, but this really showed, I think, both tactically what the campaigns are trying to do, or in Trump's case, no tactics at all, but also really showed the difference between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about Biden's Morehouse speech first. It was powerful, direct, addressed to what black voters have been making clear that they care about. And you got to remember the audience. These are young black men, many of whom don't know Joe Biden's story. So Biden made a point to tell it. He talked about how he became a public defender after Martin Luther King's assassination and the work he's done in the black community his whole career. And then he addressed Gaza head on, criticized Netanyahu, called for a ceasefire. He also addressed the protest. I support peaceful, nonviolent protests, he said. Your voices should be heard, and I promise you, I will hear them. And, he said, I know it angers and frustrates many of you, including my family. But most of all, I know it breaks your heart. It breaks mine as well. This is vintage Biden stuff. He came off as sincere, empathetic, and understanding. And, that in itself is a contrast to the loud bombast of Trump. And I just think but it doesn't get covered. I mean, you didn't see hardly any of this being covered, which is another part of the problem here. But if you watch that speech and I know we're going to get to Trump, you couldn't have a better contrast between the two.
Right. Well, if you look at it just from a tactical point of view, and again, I think I want to say it was David Korn had a good article about this, which we'll probably put out on Twitter. But the media covers car crashes, and this wasn't one of them, right? But there weren't. Yeah,
because he's treating the audience with respect.
Right. Well, there weren't loud protesters, and the tactics behind it too, right? Like they figured out what the community wanted to hear, and that's what Joe Biden said. Like it was a dialogue. It wasn't like you point out loud bombast, and it just speaks to, from the campaign's perspective, good strategy, good execution. They know what their candidate can do, and they put him in a position to succeed.
Yeah, and then look, yes, we got to acknowledge that there is erosion of the black community and support, particularly among young voters for Biden. But this is how you address it. And, the other contrast here is that Joe Biden is talking to people that he can win back. They've supported him in the past. They voted for him. Many of them voted for him in 2020. And some, like he said in the speech, are just getting to know him because of their youth. But when you look at it, and we've talked about this on the pod before, but it's true. He's getting 70% of black voters instead of 95%. But this is all happening when he's in a dead heat, down a couple of points in some states, up a couple in other battleground states, within a 1 or 2 point thing nationally. And with that decline in support, and here he is talking to the people that he needs to win back and talking about their concerns, acknowledging their disappointment in him and saying, you may not agree with me on this, but talking to them with respect. And I think that is the key here, because when you look at the groups like Latinos, like younger voters, like the decline in black support, and even Nikki Haley voters, I mean, these are all people that you can understand how Biden grows, not necessarily gets back to 95, but by the way, if he grows with it all with these 3 or 4 groups, he wins, because we're in a dead heat right now with this decline. And he is out there every day now starting to make inroads, starting to communicate and talk to these voters. And I see yes, is it a staircase? Yes, but he's climbing it, and I think some of them will come on board. Now, let's go.
Oh yeah,
and to our helper, the guy that actually pushes a lot of them in our direction. With I suspect the next speech that you want to talk about.
I mean, Trump talked to the NRA this weekend, which by the way, the friendliest possible audience for him. I'm not sure you could stack a deck more for him. I mean, and don't get me wrong, you got Joe Biden talking to an audience entirely of young black men at Morehouse College. But remember, as you point, he needs to win some of those back. I don't think Trump needs to win back any of the people that are showing up to his rallies like open carrying. So, but what did you see at that speech?
No,
why was it so different?
This thing was like, well, I mean, he's all over the place, and he literally froze up on stage for 35 seconds. I mean, he just stopped. Oh, they played and then they started playing weird QAnon music, and he just froze and stopped talking for 35 seconds. But it's a very different thing from him just being unhinged. It's one thing, where he can say whatever he wants. It's another to demonstrate in public that he just isn't all there. And it's becoming clear. This recent pattern, if you think about all the recent gobbledygook Trump has said.
That's a good word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. He said there are millions of people who don't speak real languages arriving at the southern border. He said he'd stop banks from debanking Americans.
What do you think that even means, debanking?
Debanking. I mean, why would a bank debank? Well,
It's like a buffalo. Yeah.
He still can't keep Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi straight. Actual quote, when he described his plan for missile defense, ding, 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 boom, okay, missile launch, whoosh, boom. And I should have put a quote before those ding, 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 boom.
Right.
Okay.
Right. This is not Joe having a stroke. That is what Trump said when they asked him what his missile defense plan was.
So like it is. It wasn't even the usual Trump gobbledygook. So, and then you get to the other things that went on this week where he where he talked about in the radio interview that he was open to restricting birth control. This gets back to not just the contrast between the speeches, but okay, look at the voters, like those Nikki Haley women out there. Now the one thing we know is the guy didn't use a condom. I mean, if you get into the testimony in the Stormy Daniels trial. So, I think it's consistent that he would be for restricting contraceptives. But again, look at the communities that Biden is talking to that he needs to win back, and how Trump, speaking to the NRA, being incoherent, coming out now and first walking it back now about the restrictions on contraceptives.
More like yelling it back, but yeah.
Yeah. But it's the Project 2025 agenda. It's in there to ban contraceptives. Or restrict them. So what he did was he's basically on that one, and that wasn't in the speech that we're talking about, but on that one, he basically sent a signal to all those people out there who want to ban abortion, restrict contraceptives, all that. So he sent that message to them, and then he'll try to walk back, but I don't think he can walk it back with the Nikki Haley, with the people that he's actually helping push. They will be, it's one thing that Biden is talking to these people. It's also helpful that Trump is being the gobbledygook speaking fool that he is. And when he says this stuff, I think people are going to start to take it, particularly on the contraceptives after Dobbs and everything. Take that stuff seriously, and it's, I think, going to have some impact down ballot as well. But the bigger thing here, I think, is that I keep saying this. He is stuck in this place where he's got to keep his base crazed and enthused and inflamed. And every time he bangs away on something like that, he helps Biden now, who's out there disciplined and going for the votes that he needs. And there's plenty of groups out there, not just the three that we've talked about in terms of who he was talking to in the speech, but also, like I said, the Nikki Haley supporters, the Bannon line voters, the Dobbs dads, and others out there that he can appeal to. But then on top of that, the other thing that happens is his campaign. He on Truth Social puts out a video or amplifies a video that says, "What will America be like when Trump wins?" And it's got
the Unified Reich.
Yeah, the Unified Reich is in there 3 times, 3 references to the Unified Reich, making, a direct appeal to the fascist wing, I guess. I mean, and then when they called on it, no, that was just some volunteer or somebody did something and put it up. But they left it up for 18 hours. They didn't take it down. Why? Because he doesn't want to offend his fascist supporters. He wants, that's another signal to them. No, I'm with you, man. And then after 18 hours, they finally, I guess, relent and took it down. But there's a pattern here, and there's just too many coincidences. And I think that's all starting to register. And the one thing, though, that I am surprised by, I keep hearing from people, Duty to Warn is got a lot of stuff out there on his mental decline. And I always we've heard so much about that, that he's on the verge of big mental decline. And I kind of been rolling my eyes, not because I didn't think, he's off his rocker, but just because I've heard it for so long and it's just never really manifested itself in such a way that I thought average people out there, the people who weren't paying much attention would get it. But now, I mean, the way he talked at the NRA, just the total incoherence, the freezing, I'm starting to think that as we get down here to the last, few months of this,
which is
and he'll be out there,
but yeah,
and he'll be out there on the stump a lot. I think this is going to be very visible to even his MAGA folk. Now they'll still think he must have a good reason to be crazy, but or incoherent, or they may even like it. But the rest of the country, I think he's helping kind of push the people that Joe Biden needs to win back. And again, that's the other essential thing. I don't know who Trump wins back. I do see a number of groups that Biden can win back, and even a growing number of like Nikki Haley Republicans,
right,
Dobbs dads, who are concerned about their daughters after the Dobbs decision, who may have been with Trump in the past, but aren't there anymore. So he can't, I don't see how put it this way. How does he win a Nikki Haley voter back who's already decided?
And how he's talking to them. He's just telling them he's going to ban their birth control.
Right. Exactly. That's my point. So he's making it like, so they won't ever come back. They won't even think about it, which makes them think even more about, okay, if, they already decided to not vote for him in the primaries and vote for Nikki Haley, the next step will, like a lot of them did say in the primaries, that they would not vote for Trump, they'd vote for Biden, and Trump's absolutely doing everything he can to make that a reality. So that's all good.
Well, before we get into another chance to see the contrast, I know you brought up the Unified Reich thing. This one was funny to me, mostly because, look, we make ads. We've made countless ads together. You've been making ads your entire career. Do you know how hard it is to unintentionally or accidentally put like Nazi propaganda in the background of an ad? Like, it just for our listeners to understand.
I do know how hard that is. I do know how hard that is.
It's kind of like every once in a while you see an ad where it's always Republicans, by the way. They put out like an ad saying like our strong military, and it's a photo of like a Russian fighter jet, or they talk about like American farmers and it's like a family in Hungary or something. That is a mistake. And by the way, it's a fairly like you go on a stock website, you type in fighter jet, you click the first one. It's lazy. Someone didn't check. I can almost believe that that kind of thing isn't intentional, right? But like, you don't go from newspaper stock image to Nazi propaganda. Like, you have to scroll a long way to find the Nazi propaganda.
No. There's a couple things here. First of all, fighter jets. The editor, you know, a TV producer, whatever, they don't know crap from fighter jets, right? They don't know a 135 from a 116, right? They just don't know, right? An F-16, I mean, from an F-35. They don't know. So, and they don't know that from a MiG.
Right. Sure.
unless there's a big red star on it. So no. So you're right. They go to a site and they pull up fighter jets and visual, and that's some good footage. I'll use that. Okay. No, when you're sitting there trying to put headlines up, I don't care who you are, whether you're an editor, whether you're just a production assistant. When you see United Reich up on the screen that your editor is working on in the studio, you know what United Reich means, okay? So that means that not only did the editor, I mean, everybody who was producing this thing had to see, because you know how this works, Alex. You put it up there and then you move it, like, put it closer to the, blow it up a little bigger so everybody can see the headline, when Trump wins, what will America be like? And then you put this sub-headline underneath it and you're layering it all in there. And at some point, you're right. I mean, first of all, you're right. Somebody had to go dig that particular headline up and had to know what they were doing. But then that also means everybody involved in editing it, producing it, and putting it up new. Because there's no way that this isn't a MiG jet being mistaken for an F-35 because no one in the room had a military background or understood fighter jets. No, this was a word, a sentence, and a headline out of that basically was Germany's industrial. I mean, it was literally a headline that had been used to describe Hitler's Germany. And they put it in here and they did it on purpose. It was a direct nudge to their fascist base.
So whatever's bigger and louder than a dog whistle, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's what it was. And now that they got that, and so one more time, the good people on both sides crap, they've signaled again, hey, you fascists, I really need your votes. Please come out for me because I'm going to be, you know what I did for you last time, I'm going to do even more of it. That's what his whole campaign is about. And that's what I mean about banging. He's got to keep banging away at his base to keep them engaged, inflamed, and energized. And in every time he does that, there's a Nikki Haley voter. It may work in terms of his base. I'm sure every fascist out in America is like thrilled with this. But I think in terms of the Nikki Haley voters, a bunch of young people and others that Biden needs to win back. This isn't, he just continues to bang away for his base, but push those people away. And that's why I think right now, if we're in a dead heat and the groups that we have available for Biden are, we're 20 points down or 18 points down. We don't need, if we're in a dead heat, we don't need all 18 points back. We get 5-6 points back. And by the way, I think we'll get all 18 back. I think the one thing, all these groups also have one thing in common. They're all very late deciders. Young people, I mean, all of them. You remember from Doug Jones' race in Alabama in 2017, because you saw all the nightly tracking.
Yeah, it was like the last 5 days. I mean, it was wild how late it was. And remember, they had everything. I mean, it was impossible to live in Alabama and not hear about the insanity of Roy Moore. And yet.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. They are all very late deciders. They will come back. I really believe that. It's what we've, being involved in this for 40 years, you learn a few things. So the movement will come back. And right now, the fact that we're in a dead heat this far out with the groups that I see and you see that are available And again, the Haley voters, these are people that, look, they're very conflicted. They do not want, they've decided they don't want to vote for Trump. Most of them, a lot of them, I'd say a lot, not most, but a lot of them have never voted for a Democrat in their life. I mean, let alone whether it's Joe Biden, whoever. They've never voted for a Democrat. It's going to take a while and several months before they finally decide. I mean, actually decide that they're going to move and do. And by the way, several months of Trump banging away on United Reich and other, and contraceptive restrictions on contraceptives. That they're sitting there on the fence. They know what they don't want to do. That's voting for Trump. And sooner or later, with a lot of work, I think Biden will get their votes. And so when you look at that, you look at where we are in the polls right now, man, I do look. I still don't think we're going to get to Simon Rosenberg's 55. I love him, and I think he's right about a hell of a lot. But look, I do think we're going to get to 50. And and Biden did get to 51 in 2020. That was a 51-46 kind of race. And I think that's what we're headed to. And again, I know we've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to keep repeating it, but third parties, that's where the problem may lie. Not in terms of winning so much. I don't want any of them to be in the race. I think they're spoilers. But I mean, that may keep us into the 49, 48, and God help us if it gets us into the 47 or 46 range, because that's how Trump wins.
You mentioned the late deciders, and I want to get to two ways that a lot of them actually end up thinking about. One, the debate, which we'll come back to, but this was a good listener question. Wanted to make sure we got there. This is from Jim in Missouri. Vice presidential pick. Joe, what happens if Trump picks Nikki Haley as vice president? Could it even happen?
No. I mean, I know they're talking about it again, but I just don't see. First of all, I'm sure a lot of the smarter people around Trump think that that's what they should do. But let me point out that a lot of, I'm sure, very smart lawyers around Trump didn't want him to put Costello on the stand as the final witness in the Stormy Daniels case. And for those of you who don't know, it turned into a completely unmitigated disaster as the guy further implicated Trump in the conspiracy, which was the opposite of what they had put him on the stand to do. So my point is, in the end, Trump, I just don't see him being able to, because first of all, she's going to outshine him. I mean, she's going to be a star out there, and he can't stand that. And he doesn't like her anyway, because, she had the nerve to go out to run against him. So I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's likely in the cards. Not to mention, would she do it? I mean, I think the problem for her is, I think right now she's pretty solidly positioned to be, one of the leading candidates in 2028 after he loses. I think if she runs with him, I'm not sure that she, that's one of those things where, she might think that helps her in 2028, but it could be the kiss of death. So it'd be safer for her to stand on the sideline, support him quietly, like she's been, like they all do, saying she didn't see the video, hasn't had time to review it yet, that kind of stuff, and tacitly support him and get out there she should be out there running around supporting Senate candidates this year.
Right. I don't see her putting on a red MAGA hat and standing in front of the J6 choir. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see that. Me neither.
All right. Mention the other thing. I was pretty surprised by this. I know we had talked in a past episode about why Joe Biden, under the current set of rules, should not have accepted a debate. Well, they're gonna debate.
We were right.
We'll get the yeah.
We were right.
We'll get to the rules. Yeah. But do you think it's actually going to happen?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll happen at some point. Whether it happens on, June 27th in Atlanta on CNN, that's the likeliest one and maybe the only one that does happen. But in the end, we were right, and the Biden campaign was right to not play under the commission rules first of all, that would have potentially allowed Robert Kennedy Jr. and other, to participate if he were to qualify. And you can, make a bet on that he will or he wouldn't, but it wouldn't have been smart to go in that way. And then also the audience stuff and all the other reasons why. No, Donald Trump said he will debate anywhere, anytime, any place. And they called him on it. Okay, great. It'll be, June 27th in Atlanta on CNN with no audience. And you said you'd do it, any place, anywhere. And so they had him. And I just think that this was a really smart move by the Biden campaign. And I mean, you can just see how the Trump campaign wasn't really ready for this, and are now trying to figure out how the hell they get out. I think how they get out of it, because I don't think they want, I know this is another one. Trump wanted to be on the stand. Okay. The lawyers did not want him on the stand. They ended up winning that. I'm sure that no matter what his people say, they don't want him to debate. They know this could be an unmitigated disaster, particularly in the shape he's in and how he's just speaking gobbledygook these days. Something, by the way, which is the other reason I think Biden wants that debate, because Donald Trump's been out there doing, you're senile, you're old, you won't even be able to walk across the stage. And no, the guy who can't walk across the stage is going to be Trump. And Biden's going in there on fire. And we know when Biden's on fire, like at the State of the Union, you're screwed. Okay, so they don't want this, but the boss does, right? Because he wants to be on the stand. He wants it to be all about him. He wants to be in this debate. So when you say, does it happen or not, that's a really interesting question, because we saw what happened in the trial. Same thing, right? Oh, I want to testify. I'm going to testify. I'm going to tell the truth. All the chest pounding, and guess what happened? He didn't. And so same thing. I'll debate you anytime, anywhere, any place. It's going to, we'll see how that turns out. So
yeah, the Biden quote from this, I mean, it just seemed like they just suckered him in, right? But it was,
yeah, they did.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020, and since then he hasn't shown up for a debate, which pointing out that he didn't do any of the Republican debates this time around. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal.
Yeah, exactly.
That is not the Joe Biden you want. By the way, this is not the Joe Biden you want to talk to anywhere. It's not the Joe Biden you want to talk to in a moderated debate with no audience, with Jake Tapper refereeing.
Right. No, and then Trump's going to go out there and he's going to start, like speaking gobbledygook. He won't have an audience to play to or to read. And so, no, I think, the question's the right one, though. Will it actually happen? And like I said, I knew they would never put him on the stand. I mean, that, I know he wanted to and all that stuff. I knew the lawyers didn't want it, and eventually it didn't happen. But per usual, there were Trump allies saying, you got to testify. They wanted him to. It was the lawyers who talked him out of it. I don't know if his current operatives, who are much better than the ones he had in 2016 and 2020, the smartest group of operatives he's ever had around him in these last 3 times around, which is kind of scary. I don't know if they have enough standing with him to pull him away from the abyss here. But 2, even that now, he's going to look weak if he, here he is pounding his chest. I'll debate you anywhere, any place, anytime. Bring it on, pal. And then he goes, oh, no, just kidding. It'll be because, no, we want an audience. I mean, they may do that route, this isn't, it's an audience or else or whatever. And I'm not going to debate without an audience. I mean, they'll find some reason if they really want out of it. But I wouldn't predict yet which way it goes.
Well, there's a big difference between a lawyer saying, if you do this, you're much more likely to go to jail, and a campaign strategist saying, this is what I think. I'm talking about with Trump. This is what I think would look the best. It's always been a strength of his understanding his audience, playing to it. He thinks, but he also thinks he knows that better than anybody else. So in his head, it is a lot, and I really don't want to spend a lot of time here. It's kind of gross. But in his head, he thinks he knows this better than anybody. He probably was able to be talked out of coming on the stand because of those reasons.
Right.
But it's like it's going to look weird for him to back out of this now. I do agree the audience thing is probably the way they'd take it. Who knows if there's a second debate? Who knows if there's a vice presidential debate? But it is very clear that it's nice to see the Biden campaign and Joe Biden himself not playing by the same, Mark S. of Queensbury rules here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if I had to bet, I bet it happens, the first one. I'm with you. I don't know if anything happens after that, but I think they'll probably be the first debate's likelier to happen. And it's far enough out that, frankly, on either side, if you were somebody who didn't think Biden should debate or didn't think Trump should debate, you got plenty of time to recover from a bad performance. So maybe his people, there's all kinds of ways that this could go. But in the end, what people don't get is Biden really does understand all this stuff. You may not agree with him, his policies in the Middle East or any of the major issues, but he knows he has a position and he will present it, and he will know every nut and bolt of that decision, how many troops are where, whatever. He'll know it because he does know it. Trump in that kind of debate is just a disaster if he can't play to an audience. And I think that was the sheer genius of the way they maneuvered him into a no audience debate on CNN, in June.
Joe, that's a pretty good place for us to end today.
Thanks, Alex. And thanks, everyone, for listening to That Trippi Show. This podcast will always be free with support from our advertisers and is part of Resolute Square. So check out the latest at resolutesquare.com/Trippi. Think about becoming a member and joining. Please subscribe to That Trippi Show and leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen. Also, if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. You can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question in the review on iTunes. We actually got to one or two this week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again for listening. Please tell your friends.
Resolute Square.